In recent news, RFK Jr. has officially dropped out of the presidential race, instead endorsing former President Donald Trump. RFK Jr. is the fourth ever Kennedy to run for the office of president. Overall, the Kennedy family has been involved in politics since coming to America. They've been a great service to this country and its people. In this video, I will discuss the Kennedys' role in American politics, their attempts at the presidency, and their effects on American history.
Kennedy, 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 Kennedy.
Like many Irish Catholics, the Kennedys came to America to escape the Irish potato famine. Patrick Joseph Kennedy was the first to come over. Marrying Bridget Murray, Patrick settled down only before he and his first son succumbed to cholera. Not before his second son, PJ Kennedy, was born. PJ's mom was able to raise PJ while also running a small business, where we would begin to see the start of the new Kennedy wealth. PJ in his adulthood would buy a failing saloon, but soon expanded into alcohol distribution. The first political office held by Kennedy in America was also held by PJ, serving in the Massachusetts House and Senate. PJ's wife, Mary, gave birth to multiple children, one being Joe Kennedy. Joe would grow up learning about his father's political life and his business sense. Joe showed his business ambition with the creation of a baseball team that accepted donations for jerseys, and after that, rented a stadium and sold tickets for games. He would eventually go to Harvard, but struggled due to his Catholic background. This caused him to work extra hard to get into the banking industry. Afterward, he would eventually marry the mayor's daughter, Rose Elizabeth Fitzgerald. They would have multiple children, including JFK and RFK. At the dinner table, Joe would encourage political discussions about current events. This would cause multiple Kennedys to go into politics. For example, the first child, Patrick Kennedy Jr., wanted to be the first Catholic president, but sadly he would die in World War II before he could accomplish his dream. John F. Kennedy was born on May 29, 1917. He grew up learning about politics from his father and grandfather, who would die in 1929. He would also grow up with a love of history. John would graduate from Harvard in 1940 and join the Navy to fight in the Pacific in 1943. His PT boat would get rammed, causing the crew to barely survive on the island. Coming back from the war, John ran for the Massachusetts 11th Congressional District, where he won. John only ran for the position because of his brother's death, after which he had a long discussion with his father. John would go on to marry Jackie Bouvier just after being elected Senator of Massachusetts. His book, Profiles of Courage, talks about senators who risked it all for what they thought was right, which showed off his love of history and launched his fame as a politician. Many would begin wanting him to become president. After an unsuccessful attempt at the vice presidency in 1956, he became the Democratic nominee for president in 1960. In an act of kindness, they offered the second most popular candidate, Lyndon B. Johnson, the position of Democratic vice president. They hoped he would not accept, but he did unexpectedly, which would cause more family strife in the future. Kennedy would be going up against Nixon in the presidential election. Nixon had been Eisenhower's vice president and insanely popular president in general. Kennedy would have to somehow beat him. Nixon's campaign was also coming up with insane strategies, like visiting all 50 states, including the recently added states of Alaska and Hawaii. Luckily, this election would be the first to have a presidential debate. Most experts agreed Nixon's responses were better than Kennedy's, and people said the same thing if you were listening on the radio. Luckily, this event was also televised. If you're watching on the TV, you would see Nixon sweating constantly. He had also been on the campaign trail for a while and looked sick, something you would not know on the radio. Meanwhile, Kennedy looked calm and collected, answering with clear and thought out answers. This would end up benefiting him greatly. John F. Kennedy would end up winning the election, becoming the first Catholic president. John would become one of America's greatest presidents. During his presidency, he founded the Peace Corps, provided $22 billion for the Apollo missions, prevented the Cuban Missile Crisis from turning into a nuclear war, and began the stages of ending racial discrimination. In 1963, Kennedy flew to Texas to give speeches. On November 22nd, he was riding through Dallas when he was shot in the back of the head by Lee Harvey Oswald. Lyndon B. Johnson would become the president of the U.S., later winning the 1964 election, which made a certain Kennedy very mad, Robert. During JFK's political career, Robert Kennedy, or Bobby, was always at his side. He was his campaign manager for his election to the U.S. Senate and presidential campaign. Having a law degree, Robert became the Attorney General. Bobby would be one of Kennedy's closest advisors before his assassination. After the assassination, Robert resigned from the position due to LBJ now being president. You see, Robert had a burning passion of hating LBJ. You see, during the election of Franklin Roosevelt, Joe Kennedy, Robert's dad, supported him with donations. To show his appreciation, Roosevelt made him America's ambassador to Great Britain. Joe sucked at his job. Mind you, Roosevelt made him ambassador right before World War II. Joe said that there was no chance of war and said America should just stay out of it. He was fired, and LBJ was in the room when he did it. LBJ often told the story as a joke, causing Robert to resent him. After this, Robert ran for the New York Senate successfully in 1964. During his senator's term, he worked to end racial discrimination, poverty, and the Vietnam War. Overall, he was just a nice, caring dude. In May 1968, he announced his Democratic candidacy for the president. He was one of the most popular candidates for the Democratic nominee. Sadly, on June 5th, after celebrating his win for the Democratic primary in California, Robert was shot by Sirhan. You see, Robert was a supporter of Israel, something Sirhan, a Palestinian, made him hypocritical due to his claimed support of all people. The next people on this list is Edward M. Kennedy. Edward was the last of the Kennedy children to be born. Growing up under legends in politics, Edward would run for Senate in 1962, winning the state of Massachusetts. Edward would become the third longest serving senator in U.S. history. He would work in civil rights, welfare, and health. In 1980, he unsuccessfully ran for the Democratic primary in the presidential election. Edward would die in 2009, serving for 47 years in the Senate. Our final Kennedy is RFK Jr. Born in 1954, RFK Jr. grew up under his father, Robert Kennedy, and his uncle, JFK. He saw a highly political lifestyle with John running for various political offices and Robert being his manager while later running for Senate. RFK Jr. would graduate from Harvard, Pace, and Virginia. He would become an environmental lawyer, founding multiple organizations and winning multiple cases supporting the environment over the decades. In 2014, he married Chalene Hines, who have been married ever since. Over the years, RFK Jr. became disappointed in the modern values of the Democratic Party, believing that it was not the same party as his father was a part of. In 2023, he sought the Democratic nomination. Before going independent, RFK Jr.'s platforms ran on combining conservative, libertarian, and democratic values. He also wants to offer another option for voters whose beliefs aren't necessarily in the Republican or Democratic parties. Though his beliefs were admirable, many people, including people in his own family, were mad due to his anti-vaccine beliefs. Many others thought he would be a spoil to either side, but most likely a Democratic side. Eventually, RFK Jr. suspended his presidential run, joining the Trump campaign due to the pressure of Harris's opinions on abortion. Ultimately, more Kennedys can run for office. The grandson of Robert Kennedy, Joseph Kennedy III, is currently the U.S. Special Envoy to Northern Ireland. Caroline Kennedy is also serving as the U.S. Ambassador to Australia. The Kennedy family is ultimately one of the most powerful political families in the U.S., so the amount of Kennedys that can run for or become presidents of the United States is immense. Overall, the reason why so many Kennedys have run for president is that many want to help people, from PJ Kennedy supporting Irish immigrants to RFK Jr. environmental cases. Many want to change America for the better.
Kennedy, 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 Kennedy for me. Kennedy, 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 Kennedy. Do you want a man for president who's seasoned through and through, but not so doggone seasoned that he won't try something new? A man who's old enough to know
and young enough to do.
Well, it's up to you, it's up to you. It's strictly